Good day, viewers. Welcome to the seventh episode of CITN Taxation and You. Thank you for joining us from around Nigeria, Lagos, where we are, to every part of Nigeria, from around the world, where you can join us because we are streaming live on YouTube. And you can also join us using the Zoom link containing the digital banner. Share them across with us. Thank you for joining us. Today with me to discuss a very important topic. The topic we have today is titled Orderly Use of Law Enforcement Agents on Tax Defaulters in Nigeria. Orderly use of law enforcement agents on tax defaulters in Nigeria. To dissect, to deal with this topic and to take a complete overview of this topic, we've brought a very resourceful person, an authority in the profession, someone most of us have known very well. Please join me as I welcome Mrs. Abimbola Akeredolu, SCN. Madam, program.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so Madam Akeredolu is a partner at Banwa and Igodalo and a former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice of Ogun State government in this country. So we brought the right person, best person to discuss this issue. And then we're going to make it cut across all levels, from the lay people out there to members to people in governance, public sector, private sector, NGOs, and international followers and stakeholders for our program. So, Madam, let's start. The first question I have for you here: when can a taxpayer said to have defaulted?
A taxpayer can be said to have defaulted on his or her obligations when they fail to file their tax returns and when they fail to pay their tax obligations as at when due. That's when a taxpayer can be said to have defaulted.
Okay, so for example, I'm a small company and a petty trader. I do not know all of this tax law. I know I make profits, and I do not even know the filing thing is just happening now. So I think maybe paying my taxes, levies, and all that suffice. So for not even filing, without my knowledge, I do not know, right? So does that constitute default on my part, even though I do not know that there is a filing that follows after payments?
Yes, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So the fact that you do not know does not mean, it does not afford you an excuse and does not mean that you have not defaulted on your tax obligations. The different statutes, there's the Personal Income Tax Act, has certain tax obligations, provides certain tax obligations. The Company Income Tax Act has certain tax obligations and all must be complied with within certain timelines that are stated in those laws. So you say you are a small, we don't know if you're an enterprise.
Okay.
So if you are an enterprise, a different tax law applies. If you are a limited liability company or a PLC, a public limited company, different tax laws, the CITN, Company Income Tax Act, applies. And each one has its own regulations for compliance and will set the parameters for default. So if you have not complied with the parameters set by the relevant law, then you are said to be in default.
Okay,
and that you don't know is no excuse.
Wow. That will sound harsh for some kind of category of taxpayers, down there, all the itinerant or hawking kind of businesses, the organizer down there and all that. We know the common capital and all that. Okay, that's clear.
But
okay,
see, because tax is such a major component of government revenue. You said, I'm coming to when you said that sounds harsh.
Okay.
Because government cannot run without tax. So that is what makes tax laws to be as important, as key as they are.
Okay, that's clear. I'll give you the example so that our members out there, most of them they are operating at a certain level. But for people in the streets, right, the informal sector properly, that largest in numbers, right? And those in the first sector. Now, I've defaulted either by not filing, either by not paying, either by underpaying, or either by not remitting or certain deduction to other counterparties, right? Are there steps tax authorities, whether it's the state revenue service or the federal revenue service or even the local government, revenue committee, not the local government tax, levy and rates officials, are there steps they ought to take? They should just come show up with the mobile policeman, it's gone, and business premises. Some of them, we see them in local government, especially at the local level, they show up with this chains, padlock, to lock up the premises. I'm wondering, okay, you've just told me this now, and you're telling me that I don't pay now, you lock up my store, and then you see some fierce kind of security men who have come. So are there steps that should be taken before that point, that natural sequence of action that should be taken back?
In a society that is governed by the rule of law, certainly that is not the way things should be done. A tax authority must have made a demand, a notice to you of Mr. XYZ, you are liable to tax of 100 naira for the year 2022. A notice must be given to you by way of a demand notice.
Okay.
And perhaps you then, maybe you're a small company, a medium, small company, and you look at it and think, no, I paid 75 naira, so I cannot be indebted to you to the extent of 100 naira. So you then write back. It's called an objection to say, my liability is either I'm not liable at all because I've paid 75 naira over the year 2022, or the extent of my indebtedness to you is not more than 25 naira because I paid 75 naira. So that notice must be given. It is when you do not give that notice, or if you even give that notice and the tax authority does not agree with your objection, they file a notice of refusal to amend, a NORA. They send it back to you that, no, we don't agree with you. We still maintain that you are indebted to us to the extent of 100 naira. So there are certain steps you can take after that point. You can either go to the tax appeal tribunal or go to the Federal High Court, as the case may be, to articulate your grievance within 30 days. Is when you don't do that. For instance, you don't quickly ventilate your grievance to the appropriate quarters, and you just sit back and think, oh, these people, and you ignore them. Then they would be within their rights to come and enforce their demand.
Okay. Some companies operating, some guys just show up, the tax revenue guys, you see Mopo policemen armed with gun, trying to maybe to seal up or lock up or do something, and other. So probably they waited for it to deteriorate.
And not always. It could also be that then those companies did articulate their grievance to either the tax appeal tribunal or the Federal High Court, and the court did not agree with them.
Okay.
So the use of law enforcement in that scenario is perfectly legal, because what they are doing is using the law enforcement agencies to enforce a proper order of court.
Okay.
And you will find that in that kind of situation, if you look carefully, you will find that the company itself will really not fight back, because they recognize that they've exhausted all of the appeal process, all of the objection processes have been exhausted.
Okay.
And in such a situation, it would always be good to go and sit with the tax authorities and say, okay, a judgment has come that says we are liable to you in that amount. And the tax authorities are reasonable people. So an instrumental payment or a negotiated arrangement could be made to be scheduled to pay the outstanding. It's when all of these things have not been done that you'll find that law enforcement will legitimately come. That's not to say it's not illegitimately done. And when we talk about law enforcement, there's law enforcement at different levels. So this situation you described is the tax authority showing up with armed men, perhaps to enforce a judgment of the tax appeal tribunal or the federal high court. The other type of law enforcement interference that we see in the tax area is when the EFCC, for especially, will invite people on account of tax matters. With the greatest respect, they do not have that jurisdiction. It's not within their powers to do. And this has been held by several decisions of the Federal High Court, especially the Federal High Court. There was a case we have done 2 cases where we have defended companies from what I would call interference. I probably will not do harassment, but at the end of the day, it just might be what it is. Interference from the EFCC, asking people to bring their tax returns to, it's harassment because it really is not within their remit. And the Federal High Court has held that in the 2 cases that I know of that we have handled, and I don't think this will be, this will be the place to start to mention them. But another case, the Federal High Court, I think it was my Lord, the Honorable Justice Akintoye Aluko, in the Whitbaker against EFCC case, that held that the EFCC has no business assessing, demanding, or even trying to collect tax. So law enforcement at different levels. Where you have a judgment of the CITN or the Federal High Court, if you come in with law enforcement, you are only, enlisting their support to enforce the judgment, legitimate judgment of the court. And against such, there can be no law. But where you have not issued a demand, you have not followed through the process, attended to the company or the subject's objection, honestly, you really have no business coming there with the police. And if the police know what they are doing, they should be asking, what order of court do you have in enlisting our support to go and meet these people? If there's no such order, then the police really ought to refrain from lending their services to such enforcement.
That goes to the topic of the tax authority, storm a taxpayer's premises with a law enforcement agent. There is need for a form of, is there like an order authorization?
Precisely.
That's
the right way to go. And you see, and because you've seen it happen, that's why you're using the word storm. In a civilized society where the rule of law is honored as it should be, the issue of storming should not even arise. Where you do have a court order, you walk in confidently to the company, showing your court order, and you ask, please vacate the premises because this place is under the strain, and the people will have no choice but to comply. You have shown them an order. And in that case, the police will just be there for the show of force. Really, they won't be doing anything. If things are being done properly.
I get it. Now, I there's one where the tax authorities came. That is going to the next question. And only in this circumstance are the security agents, right, law enforcement agents, that come with tax, are they allowed to use any form of force? Like, marching staff of a company out, bruising their way through, doing all sorts, just to ensure there is a lockup or there is a sealing of office or premises. Are they allowed that warrant or that order, rather, that permission granted to them by court or whichever body? Does he extend into allowing them to use force, physical force, to enforce, the purpose of which must have been at aircraft premises?
Well, the issue of force really shouldn't arise if things are done properly. If you show a court order, the head of the organization should ideally surrender to the court order. He or she knew it was coming. They really shouldn't use force. But there are instances where the people in the company where the order is being enforced may behave badly.
He does.
And be on the attack. In such a case, the police is allowed to protect the order of court.
and so
not
the
more.
one protecting.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
that is how I think best to couch it.
Okay.
So if they go in to enforce and they themselves are attacked and someone throws objects at them, there must be, of course, there must be a balance of the force. You don't kill a fly with a hammer. So the show of force must be commensurate with what they have experienced. If, for instance, a woman now throws a spoon at them, you don't shoot. If a lady there now perhaps throws a spoon or throws food, they will be entitled to perhaps hold the woman and remove her from the premises. The force must be reasonable, if at all it is necessary.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Okay, now we are going to this point where there is, there is an order, the tax authority, together with law enforcement agents are enforcing an order. It has gotten to that. It has gotten that bad. Does the taxpayer still have any form of protection? At this stage, at that stage of enforcement, probably are trying to seal up an office or lock up a premises and all of that. So, what protection? Is there any protection left at that point? What can the taxpayer do at that stage?
Don't forget that the primary duty of the police is to maintain law and order and prevent a breakdown of law and order. They are to maintain the peace. Okay. So to that extent, a taxpayer does have that protection. In enforcing an order, you don't have the right to go in there and damage things, for instance. Okay. You are there to distrain, ideally just to secure the place, lock it up until the tax defaulter or taxpayer comes to meet his obligations or reaches an agreement with the tax authority, and the tax authority feels that, okay, you can let them go back and continue to run their business. So there is that constitutional protection. The police say they are your friend. So in enforcing an order of court, they are not allowed to just completely go off the whack. Exactly. They are to preserve law and order, and in preserving law and order, they are preserving law and order on behalf of the tax authority and also on behalf of the company where they have come to distrain. Okay. They must protect everybody. Nobody should get hurt. Materials, stuff should not be damaged. Ideally, you are not there to even remove anything. You are there to lock up. So you must ensure that people who are on the premises are invited to vacate as peaceably as possible. If you then meet any resistance, you calm that resistance down and ensure that you achieve what you are there to achieve, which is to distrain, to lock up.
Okay. Wow.
Not damage anything, not hurt anybody.
Well, so only get my mind when you're explaining. I'm just playing with it in my mind. A case where if those premises is also the domestic residence. So I was just wondering. I feel for the tax authority in that case, because it's going to be a much more difficult one, where the office is the bedroom, the wife and children are there and all that. But I just like decide because I think.
Well, in such a case. A lot of common sense will come into play. A lot of common sense will come into play. Which is why, for instance, for a limited liability company, it is better for you to have what you call a registered address that is separate from this kind of.
Okay, now, springing from what you've explained, but it has happened. I've seen it where in the process of trying to enforce, most time people get emotional and some things try to fall out of hand, and the law enforcement agents have gone ahead to destroy one or two assets or vandalize resources or deface a property. Who is responsible? Is the tax authority responsible? Or what is what does the law say in a case like that? I've agreed, I've defaulted, I've agreed, but you have defaced my building, you have broken the side mirror of my car, or broken, probably there was an altercation and all of that.
All right.
Right. So who becomes responsible, who becomes liable for those damages that have arisen in the process of law enforcement?
So the first step is the person whose property is damaged feels sufficiently aggrieved enough to ventilate that grievance in a court of law.
Okay.
What happens in a court of law, this now will be a civil matter, is what we call the balance of probabilities. So in ventilating that grievance in a court of law, you say the police came to distrain and they damaged my side mirror, they broke this, that, and the other. The police is then invited to state its case. If, for instance, the police then says, but you were the one fighting me. It was in the process of fighting me that your mirror got broken. I didn't deliberately set out to break your mirror. So the circumstances will really matter. Everything, all of the evidence needs to be unpicked. Ideally, in coming to distrain, nothing should be damaged. But the fact that something was damaged immediately suggests to the innocent bystander that things went awry.
Okay.
That there must have been an incident of fisticuffs.
Okay.
The question is why? And like you said, people get emotional. So they start to fight back the tax authorities. In doing that, you have violated the law. You are resisting a valid order of a court, which the police came to enforce. So it may not be in the interest of that person to ventilate that grievance in court, because he might find that if the police do counterclaim or the tax authorities counterclaim, he just might be liable for disobeying a court order one and resisting the lawful execution of a court order.
So that's another offense.
Oh, invariably, you shouldn't resist, as long as they have not done anything untoward. And if they do anything untoward in the process of enforcing the court order, you are better off just sitting down and keeping account. Take an account of what has been done. They came to enforce the court order, and they told us to leave, and we quietly left, only for us to find out that they've broken this, they've broken that, they've broken that. Beautiful case.
Okay.
Beautiful case. But if you resist, then you take what comes with the consequences.
Okay, wow. Well, then I'll take the next question. In that sequence, do I have the right, a taxpayer, to do a video recording or audio recording of communication or the process of execution of an enforcement of an order? Do I have that right?
There's nothing against it.
Okay.
And we've handled cases where maybe not tax authorities a regulator went in to carry out its regulatory functions, and the owner of the establishment was doing a video. It was Lagos State. It was a Lagos State issue,
Okay.
and someone slapped the video out of the person's hand, and that led to a whole other thing. But there's nothing against it, provided, and this is me advising as a lawyer,
Yeah.
Do not let your process of videoing or recording constitute an obstruction.
Wow.
No, because it's so easy. The policeman will say you were obstructing the lawful enforcement of his job. So it's good to, take a video of these things, because you never know when the evidence will be necessary. And we all know the story in America, how it was the videoing of the man who was kneeling on the man's neck that saved the day at the end. So there's nothing wrong with doing a video, but be very careful not to obstruct, because a person who doesn't want to be recorded will take the smallest excuse to turn that fact against you. So happily, a lot of companies have CCTVs.
Yeah.
Just make sure your CCTV is working and you have your evidence.
Okay.
If you need it. But if you haven't obstructed them in any way, if you have not resisted the enforcement of the order, there would be no reason why there should be any damage. As such, there would be no reason why there should be a recording. But strictly according to the law, there is nothing against you recording.
Well, thank you, ma. This is very, very incisive. So many dimensions there. And then you touch on the FCC activity, something within their purview to try to demand acts or compliance with tax, that it is not within
their remit.
But is there any nexus between like the position of an FIRS calling on EFCC to come into certain aspects of an enforcement? Is there any possibility, like maybe an FIR reporting, so okay, you have to talk about this case? Is there any possibility of such?
Well, I'm aware the Finance Act 2021 amended the Federal Inland Revenue Service Establishment Act and added some sections. That's Finance Act 2021.
Okay.
And it says, for purposes of enforcing, this will now read as Section 68 of the Federal Inland Revenue Service Establishment Act. Okay. So Section 68, subsection 4. For the purposes of enforcing compliance with the provisions of relevant tax laws and preventing tax revenue loss, the service may collaborate with relevant ministries, departments, agencies, or institutions of the federal government. So that gives them some window. But then, even if the FIRS then conscripts the services of the EFCC, there must be some instrument. And you see, it must be realized that tax is a highly specialized area. Tax goes beyond obtaining by false pretenses, for instance, which is the 419 of the criminal code, that the police can say, I invite you because I'm investigating an allegation against you under Section 419 that you have obtained by false pretenses. Tax goes beyond that. Okay. Because tax is a whole process. There must have been a demand notice. Demand notice and the process must have been exhausted before you can actually say a person is in default. Okay. So if that process has not been exhausted, on what basis, outside of a legitimate collaboration with the FIRS, can the EFCC decide to be investigating a tax allegation? So they invite, is it that they will invite you and say, we believe you are in default of tax?
Okay. Not enough.
The process has not been exhausted. And I say, okay, no, I don't owe tax. How is the EFCC going to establish that I owe tax? Where is the demand notice? Okay,
my files are not with you.
If you had sent me with a demand notice for the amount you are alleging that I'm defaulting by, I would have objected.
Okay.
And if I object, you then need to look into your books and decide, okay, it's fine, send me back a NORA. Refusal, we are refusing to amend the assessment. And then if I get a notice of refusal to amend, I have 30 days before I can be said to be in default.
Okay.
So within that 30 days, I say to my board, board, we have received this assessment. It's absolutely ridiculous. We're going to the tax appeal tribunal. I can decide on day 29 from the date I receive a notice of refusal of assessment to file at the tax appeal tribunal. At the moment I do that, you can't say I'm in default, because the only person that can then finally say that I am liable is the tax appeal tribunal or the Federal High Court. When they then say, don't forget that even after those decisions, I still have a right of appeal.
Okay.
Within a certain period.
Okay.
If I have not exhausted that, the issue of my default cannot arise.
Okay.
So it is when it is clear, maybe I decide then not to appeal, and I then do not pay, that the FIRS can go to the EFCC and say, the appeal process has been exhausted. This person is clearly not interested in escalating this matter further, and she still has not paid. Let's go and restrain.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Kedilo, for this insight on all the questions I'm bugging you with, and the way you've handled it. Thank you so much, man. So I want to go to our audience. Please, if you have questions to ask, if you have contributions to make, you may use the palm icon on your device. Use the palm icon. Raise up your palm. We will call on you. When we call on you, introduce you. Say your name and your membership number, the CITN member, then you go ahead. If you are a non-CITN member, just go ahead, see your name, and then we take it up from there. So you use the palm icon so I can call on you. In the meantime, let's go ahead to our thread to read written questions. Mr. Arasi Bolagade. Ola, that's not Olasunka. Okay, Olasunkomi, thank you. Is asking, ma, what happens when a premises is being guarded by police arranged purposely for security reasons and law enforcement agent now arrive? Will it not be force for force?
Sorry, I can't answer that. I have to answer tax
question.
matters.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. So can you, Tim, can you help us through? Law enforcement should be there to protect both the tax office and the taxpayer, but because the police are always invited in by the tax office, police thinks they are there to serve only the tax authority, and with that mind, spoil a lot of things by applying unreasonable force. And then as I'm alluding to the point you made, is actually trying to protect the law, enforce the law, protect it, and also even the taxpayer.
Exactly.
Okay. That goes.
I guess that's a comment.
Yes. Okay. So can we get another? Can you scroll? Do we have other charts, other commentary?
Good morning.
Whenever the tax authority is at the beginning, whenever the tax authorities show up to enforce court orders, in most cases, things usually get out of hand between the taxpayers, tax officials, and security agencies. For the taxpayer, the best line of action is to be civil and cooperative when taxmen show up with security. Okay, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying,
yes.
Okay. So do you see have any? Okay, we don't have any other comment in that regard. Can you scroll up so that I can take everything? There are 5 new messages. Okay, can you scroll up a little bit? There is take it easy. Reasonability is a thing of the mind. What is reasonable to me might be unreasonable to you. How do we make this in the eye of the law? Ma'am, you saw about reasonability, doing what is reasonable, and but Mr. Fabala is saying is this subjective?
How do we merge this in the eyes of the law?
Yes.
Well, if, for instance, a lot is going to depend. This is not a tax question. This is a balance. This is a balance of probabilities law.
Okay.
If somebody slaps you, for instance, you shouldn't. Now it would be unreasonable for you to then shoot the person.
Okay.
That's
okay.
So in bringing it back to the issue at hand, which is if you go to enforce, the police going to enforce an order on behalf of the tax authority, and they meet with resistance. If, for instance, people are throwing stones at them and all of that, they have if they hit such a person with the baton, I would say that's reasonable to stop that person from throwing stones. You chase after the person and beat them with a baton, but you then don't chase after that person and shoot them because all the person was throwing was stones.
Okay.
It's a very slippery slope, but like I said, your best bet, and like one of the commentators said, is you shouldn't resist them when they come, especially with a court order, because in resisting them, you are actually slapping the law in the face, which is not acceptable under the rule of law. The rule of law is supreme. So when a person shows up with a court order, you must give maximum cooperation to the enforcement of that order. And if you don't, we live in a strange society. You then have to live with the consequences of what comes. That's the unfortunate truth in this environment.
Okay, thank you so much. Francis is saying, what is the best way of ensuring good behavior of the enforcement officers, especially when it comes to properties? Okay, so he's trying to get an idea. What is the best way?
That's what I've said. They come with a court order. And if you have been given a demand notice, the demand notice will normally tell you the time frame within which you should either object or pay.
Okay.
So why would you be resisting them? Then when they've gone to court to then get an order, which either you contested or you didn't contest, you know. I would advise, as soon as there's a court order or so, quickly go and sit with the tax people and, you know, have an arrangement. I'm sure they allow instrumental payments. The tax authorities would rather you be alive and remain a constant source of revenue for them than for your company to die and they don't get that tax. They are reasonable people. And I'm not holding brief for them, but
exactly.
Government needs tax to live. So it is not in the interest of government for companies or enterprises to die.
Well, thank you. Dr. Sheyi Agbeye is asking, when TAT, that time of Fabina judgment, when TAT judgment is an extension of a subsisting tax law and tax authorities insist on the existing law, what can one do? I don't think that's clear. When TAT judgment is an extension of a subsisting tax law, and tax authority
judgment be an extension of the law,
and the tax authority insists on the existing law, what can one do? That's looking very clear to me. That's not looking clear. Dr. Abe, can you please help us and rephrase, Dr. Sheyi, help us rephrase that question so I can get it with you know, utmost.
Cannot be the extension of a subsistence tax law. A tax judgment can only reiterate, uphold an existing tax law, not an extension.
Okay, Tim, can you help us go gently? Okay, so no, you've gone too fast. Yes.
Has the power
to seize, just go gently so that I don't miss out. This
of defaulter.
Has the power to seize movable items from premises of the defaulter by the tax authority and be kept in custody. Can you help us go gently? And kept in custody for 14 days be withdrawn. Sorry, have the power to seize movable items from the premises of the defaulter by the tax authority and be kept in custody for 14 days be withdrawn. Is there
which because this will be pursuant to a law.
A law, yeah, okay.
So there are different laws. There are laws at the state level, there are laws at the federal level. It will depend on the particular law that you are talking about.
Okay. Solomon, Mr. Solomon Onkai from FCTI in Abuja. There is more. Let's see. Can you speak?
This trend.
It's still not clear, Mr. Araboy. We need to just paraphrase, integrate this word into your question, paraphrase it so I can get it much clearer. So I think let's go to our voice audience. There's an OG Patricia who has a question or commentary to make. Please unmute OG Patricia and please go ahead with all your questions and commentary. Thank you. OG Patricia, are you there?
Look at what.
Okay, while OG Patricia. Yes, the Lakboyeni is asking, the tax law says tax should pay 50%. Okay.
No, it's not
of the distributed income.
It's not the tax law that says that. It's the
before
law.
Proceeding to TAT of High Court. What is the view? Okay.
That law applies only to TAT, not High Court.
Okay.
You can go to the High Court. That law applies to TAT.
Meaning, you said, I want to go to TAT.
Yeah.
But before you even come,
they say 50%
cost. Okay.
But the TAT itself has not upheld that law or that proviso.
Okay.
I'm aware of the decision where they didn't.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, please hold it there. Let's take this from Kwara Internal Revenue Service. This is from Mrs. Molanike. Okay. Good morning. Please, what do you think about the implementation of the electronic delivery of correspondence as provided by the Finance Act now?
No. I'm sorry. I'm just doing tax.
Okay.
I'm just doing tax today.
Okay. Can you scroll? Is there another question? Oh, Patricia
is still connecting to audio.
Okay. Yeah, Patricia, please unmute her. I think she's unmute her so that she may speak.
There's a connection problem. Connect. There's a connection problem.
Okay, disconnection. Okay, please, if you can reach us audio-wise or using the audio, Okay, I think Patricia, so unmute her. Patricia, you may unmute and then go ahead to make all your comments once and for us since we have you now. Patricia, can you please unmute?
Good morning.
Good morning, madam. Good morning.
Good morning.
So you can go ahead, ma. Ask a question, make your contributions.
Okay, no, I'm just joining now. I'm just joining you. No question yet.
Okay.
Your hand is up.
Okay, you may bring down your palm so that please, when you call through, let's get with the topic. Right, let's get with the topic we have on hand. Yeah, Mr. Doctor, that's Dr. Shea, I guess. He's gone. Okay, he's gone. Okay, fine. Okay, I think he's back. Dr. Shea Agbaye, can you please unmute and go ahead, sir?
Good day, madam. My question is, if there is a conflict between an existing law and the pronouncement of tax appeal tribunal, and the tax authorities insist on the existing law, the old law, what can one do? If we are now referring to small companies that don't have this tendency to want to go to court, but want to rely on a pronouncement of tax appeal tribunal, which ordinarily should have been a new law, what can they do?
I'm sorry. I can only advise that they go to either the tax appeal tribunal or a court.
Okay, okay.
This is a rule of law country. There's no other way. It's either they go and pay that money, or they hold their hand by ventilating their grievance to the appropriate judicial authority, which for tax will be the tax appeal tribunal or the Federal High Court. There's no getting away from it. And the tax authorities will push their advantage where they can. And they are perfectly entitled so to do.
Okay,
I hope that helps.
Yeah, Dr. Agbaye, did that address your concern? Okay, Ma'am, I want us to look at the local government level. You know, most time in Nigeria, not too many businesses are familiar with the way local government revenue administration runs. You know, we are familiar with the personal income tax, company income tax, petroleum profit tax, those at that level. But I think the enforcement in quotes disorderliness is huge at local government level.
Yes.
We see them almost every day.
Yes.
They show up with chains, where is the radio permit, or one thing, where is this other permit? And you are showing up for the first time, actually. The presumption, I'm talking practically what we see. Thank God for Lagos that has gone a whole step ahead, trying to streamline list of specific levies and stuff that can be collected at local government level. You see, when they show up, they come with this chain and padlock. They presume that January 1 to January 7, you ought to have paid or something. They don't serve notice per se. You know, they show up and they want to lock up your shop or demand you must pay something. Before this is common, the market will understand, and the store will understand. And some of them are part of those who are listening to us. In that circumstance, what do you think a trader, a shop owner, a store owner should do on that circumstance? They haven't given me a notice before. They are local government revenue guys, and sometimes you know they don't dress well, they look forceful, they look. What opinion? Just opinion.
Well, they often give notice. I've ventilated some of these grievances on behalf of some entities at the local government level. They give notice. Maybe not in all instances, but they tend to give notice. But however, where a lot of these agencies are predatory in nature. They take advantage of the fact that you want to stay open, and you know they press that advantage. I agree. So the way to avoid it in the first place is pay your tax obligations on time. Paste it. within your shop.
Okay.
And you see, these people know those who know their rights. So maybe the very first point is for everybody to acquaint themselves with their rights.
Okay.
Pay your obligations as early as possible in the course of the year. Make a photocopy of it and have maybe a notice board somewhere in your shop where it will be clear that we paid for 2022. In fact, over the years, when they know that the shop XYZ always pays and shows us photocopy, they even often after that don't bother with you because they say this one will just be speaking English.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
the first step is let us all be compliant as much as possible. Is when we have become compliant that we can then stand up to these people to say, I did not receive a notice. The beauty of tax law is everything is statutory. Acquaint yourself with the relevant tax law and ensure that you comply with it. There's no getting away from it. Because you see, I remember once I was traveling in Edo State on a Saturday.
Yeah, wow.
And this
Look at it. Wow.
just jumped out of nowhere and said, radio license. But you see, I did not know what the law was. I did not know my rights. We were constrained to pay 30,000 in the middle of nowhere in Edo State.
Wow.
In
Wow.
Benin.
Wow.
It was in that Benin area. They are notorious. Yes. So I know that next time I'm going to those kind of places, especially Benin, for instance, I will ask my friends who are tax practitioners in Edo that what is this radio license thing? And look at all the possibilities. To be forewarned, they say it will be forearmed.
Okay.
And it's not only in Edo State that this thing happens. And what I'm talking about was well over 30 years ago that I'm talking about.
Wow.
But I've heard people who have had such tales of woe.
Yeah. I had it in Anambra and Onitsha. But because I had a little knowledge of the area, I had to lock them up actually because they were doing something legally. I locked them up. And for 7 days.
But I didn't know that it was illegal.
They came for this emblem that I say, listen, I'm not a transporter.
I'm
man.
not local.
I say, I'm not. They said, no, for having passed through here. I said, but this is Central Road. So I just send someone to go to the nearest police station. I could do that because I was not isolated in a lonely road.
Right.
When the policeman came, we took them, we locked them.
Beautiful.
So, but if I was
you
highway,
you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Imagine somebody who is going for maybe a funeral, the church is at 12 and this is 11:30. If you have 30,000 and just give it to them and let them allow you be on your way. Doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah.
So that's why I said they are predatory in nature. They prey, they take advantage of your situation.
Okay.
So if you are not in the middle of nowhere, you are sitting in maybe Sangros Market, and somebody comes every year to harass you, and you don't do anything about it, then it appears harassment is conducive for you. Because I would have imagined after it happens to me the first year, by the time you are coming the second year, I shall be ready.
Okay.
So it's for us, it comes back to my point, acquaint ourselves with the relevant tax laws and our rights. As a nation, I'm sorry to say, we really don't have a sense of commonwealth. As long as I have gotten out of it and I'm free, I don't want it to happen to my friend next door. I don't want it to happen to my child coming next week. We need to do these things. We need to acquaint ourselves with our rights. Living in civil society is all about rights. When the Israelites left Egypt and they were going in the wilderness, what was one of the first things that God did? He gave them laws to make their society orderly. And everybody got to acquaint themselves, got to know the law. That is what we should do in civilized society. It has affected you today. Acquaint yourself so that you know. I'm not saying everybody should become a lawyer. But acquaint yourself. They come to collect business premises every day. Business premises is the remit of state government. Why will local government now be saying business premises? My neighbor, this business premises, did they collect it from you? Yes. Have you paid at the state? These are the inquiries that will put you on the trajectory, on the right trajectory to saving yourself from these predators.
Okay.
And in any case, if they collect any money from you, ask for a receipt.
Okay, yeah.
You are entitled to a receipt. Any tax authority under the heavens that charges you money owes you a receipt.
Wow.
Anybody you pay money to should give you a receipt.
Okay, so every single, no matter the amount of money, so long as you're paying it,
money.
it has to be receipted.
Yes, because it's the revenue going into the hands of government.
Okay.
Otherwise, what would be the evidence of the fact that I paid if I don't have a receipt?
Okay. Oh, wow. Thank you. Now, let's look at the tax authority part of it and government. If you are to, what do you think government should, government two ways, government itself and the tax authority agency, what do you think, what in quote, counseling, do you think they should be doing periodically to ensure that their staff or members or team execute enforcement, civilly? What role do you think government has to play, or the tax agency themselves have to play in that regard for the foot soldiers who go about enforcement?
There's no two ways about it. They need in-house training for their own people, and they also need to be enlightening the public.
Okay.
So that the public know that these people are coming to ask for you to pay this, that, and the other. And the reason why they are doing that is government needs revenue to run. Okay. So your cooperation with these people will help us to provide the services, social services that you need as a people.
Okay.
But with their own people, they need to train. Nobody wants to part with money if he doesn't absolutely have to. Nobody wants to. So the in-house training that the tax authorities should be providing to their own people is to teach them the proper way to approach their market.
Okay.
So that they will be civil and they will be polite to elicit the required response and cooperation from their market.
Okay.
In-house training and enlightenment for the public.
Okay.
A lot of people don't even know why they are paying tax. A lot of people don't even know why they are paying tax.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ma. There's an in your bong, our time in fast spent, there's an in your bong Udo. Mr. Inyobong Udo, can you please unmute and go ahead with your question or commentary? In your bong Udo.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Ma, for the last, second to the last, advice you gave on us knowing our rights, especially pertaining to local government and tax authority. I just want to make a really crazy suggestion. It's really, really crazy. I wish there is a way the members of the public, for example, as you mentioned, say the market women, I wish there was a way they could have like a data, like a list of approved tax officials that should be coming to receive, their dues from them. And I know that it poses a security risk, but I was just thinking, still in that crazy line, they could have like a picture and a serial number attached, and so that no strange face would just appear at their door and demand for, taxes. Yes, of course, they should know their rights and all, but many a times we are talking to people who are not that literate. But there is nothing that visual, visuals cannot do. It transcends illiteracy. So they'll be able to know, oh, this person coming, okay, this person is in my database, kind of like what the drug industry does now, where you go to the pharmacy, you pick a drug, and then there's like a serial number, then you call, and the owners of the drug will be able to confirm, yes, that this is from us, this is an original. So it would be something like, oh, okay, well, we know that face. What is your serial number as confirmation? And they say, oh, I am 234. And then they'll be able to now check their own database and confirm that, oh, okay, yes, you are truly a tax officer. And they can always want to even call in to, our office places and find out, is this person really coming from government office? As I said, it's a crazy suggestion, but I love you very much.
Thank you very much. I honestly, with the greatest respect to you, it's not crazy. You are actually making a very valid point, which has also occurred to me. And the perspective from which it occurred to me was, you know, the market women, they are organized. They have their yalojas.
Okay. Yeah.
Who are probably more educated than, you know, most of the market women themselves. So they are the leadership of the market. This suggestion you made is for the leadership to implement, if indeed they had the interests of their constituency at heart. Okay, so that is to the market women. The people at the local government who are collecting the money, has it occurred to them that there could be imposters who are collecting this revenue that should properly be coming to them and taking it away? So your suggestion could apply from the larger perspective, that's the leadership of the market, and also from the local government. There are times you want to park at certain markets and some boys will come. We are the ones here. And I said to them, and we're parking.
Wow.
I asked for a receipt. And you find that if they are not legitimate, they say, no receipt. I said, no payment.
Wow. Okay.
Perhaps because I know my rights. So, you know, your idea is not crazy at all. I would have thought that, you know, the yalojas who take the benefits of being the leaders should also bear the responsibility of looking out for their people. We tend to forget in Nigeria that leadership is about service. We are more interested in the big man part of it rather than the service part. But thank you very much for that contribution.
Well, thank you, Maria. We're about around it. Now, you've held a very prestigious position in this country. And you see, I know you at that point, being the former Attorney General Minister for Justice in Ogun State, will you say, especially in Nigeria, when it comes to the law enforcement thing, using law, other law enforcement agent, do you think it's kind of similar to what other developed countries pass through, or Nigeria is our scenario is not as is it better than what we have in other developing nations? From that to where, what did you see?
Well, I mean, I didn't do much interfacing with law enforcement when I was there, apart from the prosecution end of my job description. But to your question about is the law enforcement situation in Nigeria any better or any worse than outside, I would say it's pretty much the same. We just heard in the US, Tyree, who was killed by who was beaten to pulp by 5 black officers. A year or two ago was the young man on whose neck another officer lay for George Floyd for 9 minutes.
Wow.
So if you say George Floyd was a racist incident, what do you want to say about Tyrese, who was beaten by men of the same color as himself? So I don't think, and here in Nigeria, we recently had the unfortunate shooting of Omobolanle Rahim, a lawyer, on Christmas Day. So I don't think Nigeria's situation is any worse. So, except that we need to compare oranges with oranges and apples with apples. So we are all pretty much at the same level. I don't endorse the nasty things that the law enforcement have done, but I find that a man who is doing a law enforcement job is in a very precarious situation. He himself, every time he's on the road, is living in fear of death. That puts you on edge. You and I, yes, we will all die one day, but the fear is not a perpetual fear the way it is for a policeman in uniform.
Okay.
So I think, and this is a hypothesis that I have come up with, constantly living on edge impairs your judgment.
Wow, wow, wow.
I think that's what we've been saying.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much. I want to thank you, Ali, Mr. Abimbola Akeredolu, partner, and former Attorney General, Minister for Justice, to state government in Nigeria. Thank you for taking our very precious time. I know I was on it, but thank God you are here. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's time to sign up. Thank you. We hope we'll call you some other time. You take a few out of time to join us on this program. So, thank you. Let's have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you. Bye-bye.